So it is already July 8th of 2024. We only have 2 episodes left of the Acolyte series, only 2 left for those like Leslye Headland and Kathleen Kennedy to convince the overall audience that there's something more to the Acolyte than we already know, which by the way there really isn't. We know that there's nothing about this series that can turn it around at this point when you're already 6 episodes through. Most people have checked out. Viewership keeps on plummeting. It keeps on going down and down week by week, and it's not looking good for Lucasfilm and most certainly not looking good for the Walt Disney Company. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. So one thing about Leslye Headland and Kathleen Kennedy is that we know that they are both doubling down and also engaging in damage control when it comes to the Acolyte series. You know, they have actually gone so far to say that there are no moments in this series that are all agenda driven or some part of a narrative by Disney. They all refuse it. They are, of course, rejecting the fact that that does indeed exist, and we have those like Leslye Headland who continue to lie to the general public about what they have done in the Acolyte series and what it's all about. Now, what's interesting about this is that Leslye Headland is seemingly becoming more desperate when it comes to the ongoing Acolyte backlash that only worsened with episode 6, where literally nothing happened. It was a bore fest. There was really nothing of substance to episode 6. You even had a very creepy scene in there that was very much like something that you would see in Game of Thrones. Does not belong in Star Wars, let me just say that right now. But what's interesting about this has more to do with Headland. Let's get into this, shall we? Now, specifically, of course, with only 2 episodes left for the Acolyte, those like Leslye and Kathleen are continuing to head into damage control over the series. Recently, Headland attacked the fans yet again as the Acolyte viewership continues to dip week by week. She delivered the following: I just think fans that claim to be fans who keep pushing this narrative that Lucasfilm and Disney are all about pushing some form of ideology just live in an imaginary world, because that is most certainly untrue and completely false. Our support for the LGBTQ community and representation in Star Wars has nothing to do with any sort of agenda, but rather it provides us the ability to gravitate toward a wider global audience and to create a character that may very well relate to those that come from different backgrounds. Explain to me how that is agenda driven, because it certainly is not. I think the critics over what's been happening with the Acolyte are blown out of proportion. You really can't take reviews seriously anymore, because now it's all about toxic males who want the characters to look and act a certain way, and nothing to do with the story. Those aren't fans, those are just posers as far as I'm concerned. Kathy and I knew we would be dealing with the same inflammatory minority of fans that create so much noise, just as they did with Ryan's The Last Jedi, which I proudly took so much inspiration from him in this series. I think you see that in episode 6, how it is a love letter to The Last Jedi. That was all intentional. I really always wanted to do that, and I finally got my dream to come true. The fans that have an issue with the Acolyte just don't understand what Star Wars is all about. Star Wars is about evolution and creating a parallel, yet familiar world to our modern reality and how that works. And that's why the Acolyte needed to adjust to our reality in 2024. And I couldn't be more proud of Kathy and Dave, providing me all the support in the world for that. These are the same fans that give Kathy a hard time for all the great things that she had done at Lucasfilm for Star Wars. I mean, every one of these critics should be proud that new Star Wars features and shows are even coming out to begin with. They should all be proud that Lucasfilm is taking the time to make these projects. I really wanted to change the meaning of good and evil, what it means to be Jedi or Sith. There are things about them that are totally misunderstood, and you will see that in episodes 7 and 8. The thing that I really wanted to dive into is the sympathy of the Sith with the stranger, and how we could create that narrative to our audience. What you saw in episode 6 when the stranger is vulnerable in the water without his attire, I knew we had to do something so shocking like that to the audience that it would make them feel a bit awkward. It was all intentional to do something like that because they needed to see a different side of the Sith that is willing to go beyond, and just how far they are willing to go to convince the hero that their message of the misunderstood aspects of their nature and the Force. Now guys, let me just stop here quick before I move on about what Leslye is continuing to throw out there. which is complete nonsense and ludicrous. So she goes on to say that fans that are critics are not fans. They are just nothing more than posers, that they are the so-called same exact inflammatory, loud, opinionated fans from The Last Jedi. And look, this is the narrative that they like to keep on pushing, right? It's nothing but a minority. There's no agenda here at Lucasfilm or Disney. They're all about the agenda. They want the characters to look a certain way, yada yada yada. That's not true at all. What the fans want, what I would like to see in a normal world, in a normal universe, is art over ideology, alright? Without any kind of activism thrown into Star Wars or any kind of franchise out there, over proper storytelling, over proper character development that can create fine entertainment. And I think that's why a lot of people nowadays are having a very tough time. There's less and less entertainment, whether it's in the film industry or on streaming, or heck, even at the theme parks. We know that Walt Disney is pushing their overall narrative into the Disney theme parks as well. People are just fed up, and they are turning to other aspects of entertainment as opposed to what's being done in Hollywood. So, interestingly enough, there's a lot of things going on with the Acolyte. She goes on to continue to talk more about how Dave and Kathy signed off on everything that she had done in the Acolyte series. That tells you all you need to know about Dave Filoni. Again, I have to keep pressing this because a lot of fans don't know that Dave Filoni fully supports what Leslye and Kathy did with the Acolyte. It's not about keeping his job or anything like that. He is all for it. He actually talked about this word by word. Moving on. She goes on to conclude, and just how far they are willing to go to convince, of course, the hero is something that I really wanted to elaborate on, especially in episodes 7 and 8. You are going to see a different connection between Osha and the Stranger, but the critics are not fans at all. Not of George's work, and not the work that I put into the Acolyte. So, she's even going as far to say that the critics are not even fans of George Lucas's Star Wars, that they are the same exact people that have a problem with The Last Jedi, that actually are supposedly having issues with George Lucas's work, which is not true. Everyone pretty much loves the originals. A lot of people grew up with the original trilogy. They're magical features that really changed the entire concept of the film industry. Believe it or not, it did, especially with the special effects and the concept of filmmaking. Now, what's interesting about that is you got Leslye Headland again, really just going into full, both damage control mode and double down mode when it comes to the Acolyte. This is not going to stop with episode 7 and episode 8, where she does claim, we talked about this 3 days ago, where she does claim that those 2 episodes, the lightsaber duels, are going to outperform the duels that you saw in the originals and the prequels combined. I don't buy it at all, because she said the same exact thing about what in episode 5 was going to outperform The Phantom Menace. It did not, but I would like to hear what you all have to say about this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.